Good morning to all, and welcome to live coverage of another broadcast. I think it's the second for the year called by the Ministry of National Security here at the ODM, Office of Disaster Management. This is a press conference called by the Ministry of National Security, and we are broadcasting from GMIT. At the head table this morning, we have the Minister of National Security, Reuben Blackmore. We also have the Deputy Fire Chief, and also the representing the Fire Service. We'll tell you who is representing the Fire Service, as well as we have the PS in the ministry as well. But of course, the chairperson, who is Mr. Fitzroy Pascal, will give us some more details as to the persons at the head table this morning. So those of you who are watching us and listening on the radio, we want to say good morning to you and welcome as we await the commencement of today's press conference. Over to Fitzroy Pascal.
Allow me to recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister for National Security and Legal Affairs, Honorable Reuben Blackmore, the Acting Permanent Secretary, Ms. Aflin Nesty, the Deputy Fire Chief, the Assistant Superintendent of Prisons, and the Assistant Superintendent of Prison, and the titles, the Registrar of Titles. Good morning to all, and let us please stand for a word of prayer. Almighty Father, in the name of your only Son, Jesus, we thank you for your continued mercy and grace. We thank you for keeping us to see this another week. Father, bless this event as we continue to keep the public informed on the activities of the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. Father, we pray for guidance in planning the affairs of this country. We thank you for your protection in spite of all that is happening the world over. Father, we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, everybody. Let me acknowledge again the Honorable Minister of National Security and Legal Affairs, Mr. Reuben Blackmore. Our head table, the Deputy Fire Chief, Mr. Wayne Later, the Acting Superintendent of Prisons, Sir Jeffrey Edmond, the Registrar of Land and Titles, Ms. Vincia Ogis. Good morning once again, and welcome to the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs press conference. It is the mandate of the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs to keep the public informed and interface with the public on matters of national security on a regular basis. In keeping with this mandate, today we have chosen to update you and present three divisions of the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, namely the Dominica Prison Services, the Dominica Fire and Ambulance Services, and the Land Titles Registry. These three divisions are vital to society's safety and security. Our prison services is important to our country, playing a crucial role by providing a means to detain and rehabilitate individuals while protecting the public. Our prisons also act as a deterrent to potential offenders. Our fire and ambulance services are essential components of emergency response systems in our country. They save lives, protect property, and provide critical support to the country. These good men and women risk their lives for ours whenever the need arises, with no hesitation. Our land registry is a fundamental aspect of property ownership and is essential in facilitating the vision of our government that every Dominican should own a piece of Dominica. The land registry also supports our economic development. We have welcomed the heads of each of these departments, and we invite at this time the head of the fire and ambulance services to give us a few brief remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Honorable Minister, Mr. Blackmore, Minister for National Security and Legal Affairs, PS, Acting PS, Ms. Nesty, Head of Division of the Prisons, Mr. Edmond, Ms. August, who is the Head of the Registry of Lands and Titles, and all other heads of department who are here this morning. Let me say welcome, and also welcome to the media for being here this morning. The Dominica Fire and Ambulance Services Division is indeed happy to have this opportunity to highlight what the Dominica Fire and Ambulance Service has been doing and what we do. During my short stay up here, I will be talking about one, the impact of the fire and ambulance services as it relates to our data, and we are talking about the data for 2023. We will also talk about new initiatives which may affect the fire and ambulance services moving forward. And this morning, I think that these initiatives which will come into play will be of great importance to the nation. But firstly, let's look about the fire service and what it is that we do. The fire and ambulance services has the mandate to keep Dominica a safe society. We respond to fire incidents, motor vehicle accidents, and sometimes we say motor vehicle incidents because in a lot of cases it was not something which accidentally happened. But we respond to these incidents. We respond to issues where we have to rescue persons, and rescue in the terms of persons who may be trapped in the forest, in the urban society, and even in some of those incidents relating to disasters. We also respond to persons in need during and after disasters. So therefore, looking at these now, it tells us what the fire service do. And someone may say the fire officers do nothing, and back in the days we used to hear fire service officers simply play domino and get a salary. But indeed, this is far from being the truth. We could say from data clearly in 2023, and that's January to December 2023, the fire and ambulance services had a response to 11,299 calls. And those calls are in relation to our core activities of firefighting, ambulance service, motor vehicle accidents, rescues, and fire prevention. The ambulance services forms part of almost 90% of our service delivery at the fire and ambulance services. So we are looking in the year 2023, we responded to 10,623 calls. And these are calls that we actually responded to based on when persons call. During these calls, we refer to persons and we treat persons with trauma and medical conditions. That, as I said earlier, accounts for almost 90% of our service delivery output. What persons do not understand also, we've got an educational part of the fire and ambulance service called the Fire Prevention Unit. They are responsible, and that's a team of 4 persons, are responsible for going around the country throughout the year, do lectures, training, inspection of buildings, and they cover quite a bit. So in 2023, we could say that this division, this unit, did fire prevention work, first aid training, inspections, and alike. We trained approximately 1,199 persons during that year. And the interesting thing is, this is impacted on the people in a positive way. Persons learn how to deal with incidents at the home, which include fire occurrences, and also life-saving issues. Motor vehicle accident is one of the areas that we are very concerned about. And when we say motor vehicle accident responses, we at the Fire and Ambulance Services mean that these are actual calls where persons who are either trapped or injured in a motor vehicle accident. And that record shows that we responded to 117 calls in 2023. But that's a jump from 2022, where we had 90, and in 2022, we had 93, and 2021, we had 90. So 117 of those calls were responded to. And then, one of the interesting part of that data, it's one which I will spend a little about. It's that of bush fires or brush fires. And I'm going to spend a little time on that simply because this time of the year is a time which is the driest time of the year in Dominica, and locally we call it the brush fire or bush fire season. Not that it's the time when we produce plenty bushfires, but these are the times when a lot of bushfires actually occur. And in 2023, we responded to 117 of those calls. But I'm going to draw a little bit of even more comparison. This year so far, 2024, January to March, we have responded to 60 of those calls. And the brush fire season is just beginning. We expect a long dry spell, and during those times, we expect during the month of May into June that the amount increases. But data tells us that the brush fires which occur are not all naturally occurring. And we are talking about the influence of man. So we are asking persons, asking Dominicans, be aware of the extent that fire damage could come to our communities. So, during agricultural practices, we find that a lot of persons use fire to clear the land. We advise as a fire department, clear the land, and you only use fire to get rid of some of the waste after clearing. And that we could say, pile the waste into heaps and burn them by small heaps, rather than set the place on fire. We have recognized that a lot of persons are using fire simply to clear the land by setting the land ablaze, and it goes, and when it gets out of control, they call the fire department. This, we say, it's a bad practice. We are also calling on persons. Remember that fire is not, the damage of fire is not only physical where it burned the property, but also in its effect on human beings. Smoke can kill. We have a population which is enriched with the elderly and a lot of infants. Smoke can kill. Elderly and infants in the presence of smoke can be a very dangerous thing. And we are saying that one of the causes of an irrespirable environment is that of smoke. So please be aware of that and try to reduce on the amount of burning. The Fire and Ambulance Services did not only experience fires through 2023, moving into 2024, but we are also blessed, and I would want to say thank you very much to the government of Dominica for the impact that they had on the staff. In the latter part of last year's financial year, we had the appointment of officers to ranked positions. That was long awaited, but we finally got that going. And that's in the case of 4 station officers, 7 leading firemen, and 4 substation officers. We had persons acting in those positions, but in the latter part of the last financial year, which was June of 2023, they were appointed to those positions, and we want to say thank you to the government of Dominica. That came as a result of an increase in our staff allocation, which we moved from 131 to 165. Currently, the Fire and Ambulance Services has an establishment of 165 working on island. New truck and ambulance. It is expected, there's the promise from the government, and we are expecting in short time that payment will be made for one fire truck and one ambulance. The fire truck comes from a company called Angloco in England, and that fire truck is at the US dollars. These equipment, I say, will bring good relief to us. And the firefighting capabilities that we have in this area needs improvement. This station will bring such as we expect more persons to be even more comfortable than we are right now with good living conditions. That station will be constructed with 2 floors. The ground floor, which will be operations, consists of storerooms, the engine room, offices, operation offices, meeting place, and alike. We also have in that facility a decontamination bay for washing of our ambulance and decontaminating of our equipment. And the first floor of that building will be for residents. That will include male and female barracks, toilet facilities for our staff at all times. The Dominica Fire and Ambulance Services wish to make all plea to Dominicans that we continue to live in a safe environment. And it has been recognized that of late, persons have been complaining about contacting the fire service. So I will take this opportunity to inform the nation and everyone else who's interested in contacting the fire service of the numbers for such contact. I will take my time to go through it slowly. Roseau Brigade Headquarters, the numbers are 266-4400, 266-4400. There's also 266-4019, 266-4019, and also 448-2888. 448-2888. Melville Hall Fire Station, 266-4610 and 266-4609. 266-4610 and 266-4609. Portsmouth Fire Station, 266-5215. 266-5215. Granby Fire Station, 266-4402. Lapland Fire Station, 266-5433. 5433. Castlebros Fire Station, 266-4668. 266-4668. St. Joseph Fire Station, 266-4874. 266-4874. Would like to inform all citizens of Dominica that at all times these telephones are manned as we run 24-hour guard duties at each station. In the case of some ambulance stations, sometimes all the staff are out on the ambulance, which is 2, and someone may not be in the station at the time. But we encourage persons, please contact your health centers, and the health centers will meet the fire officers on duty when they are out. We want to encourage Dominicans to please follow the guidelines of safety, practice safety all the time. But it would be remiss of me to end here without saying a big thank you very much to the staff of the Dominica Fire and Ambulance Services. You have continued to work diligently at all districts, remembering our standard of service delivery to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lalita, for such an informative presentation on the status and developments of the fire and ambulance services. And I think it's rather important, the numbers that you have just issued, and we will have these numbers published for the public. As you have indicated that this is indeed the dry season and there may be increasing fires, and for any other service or reason that would render the use of the fire and ambulance services. At this time, I would like to call upon the Acting Superintendent of Prisons, Mr. Jeffrey Edmond, to update our listening and viewing public on our prison services. Mr. Edmond.
Good morning. Honorable Minister of National Security, Mr. Blackmore, PS Acting, Ms. Nesty, Registrar of Titles, Ms. Ogis Francois, other department heads, SAO Lloyd, the media, welcome. The prison service is mandated by law to keep in safe custody those committed by the courts. Our duty is to help them lead law-abiding and useful lives in prison and upon release. As a result of this mandate, we have sought to engage our inmates in a few rehabilitative activities. As such, one such activity, building trades module, conducted under the auspices of the Youth Development Division, started on the 3rd of April this month and will go on for a maximum of 4 months. Some 11 inmates are engaged in this module. In March, we had a painting choral texture module. Some 15 inmates were engaged in this module. At the end of the exercise, the inmates received certificates. They learned the skills of preparing surfaces, preparing estimates, and the application of choral texture. We have formed partnerships with the Ministry of Social Services, and as a result of this partnership, they have conducted assessment of our inmates to commence psychosocial work in the prison. Some 88 inmates have enrolled, and at the end of the exercise, we will commence counseling sessions for our inmates. It's also envisioned that at some point that prison staff themselves, ourselves, will also receive some form of counseling or psychosocial work at some point. We also, in the not too distant future, will engage our inmates in literacy and numeracy classes. Our staffing cabinet have approved the positions of 23 new officers. And as a result of this new mandate, we have already engaged 11 new staff. As we speak, they are in training. Last week, they were in Mount Bruce Training School for a week. And as we speak, training is continuing at the prison right now. The buffer zone is continuing, and we are hopeful that towards the end of the next month or two that it will be completed. The buffer zone is a very important aspect in our security because persons with deviant behavior are found fit or fitting inmates. So the completion of the buffer zone will do very well to us. Again, the Dominica Prison Service men and women continue to custody those committed by the courts and to help them lead law-abiding and useful lives in prison and upon release. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edmond, for your update on our prison services. And we are happy to learn of the rehabilitation aspect of the prison, that our inmates, when released back into society, will be providing services to members of the public and ensure that they too do not engage in any criminal activity upon release. So that is indeed encouraging and a good accomplishment of the prison services. At this stage, we'd like to invite to speak the Registrar of Titles, Ms. Vincia Auguste Francois.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to everyone. Permit me to recognize the presence of the Minister of National Security and Legal Affairs, Honorable Rayburn Blackmore, Acting PS, Ms. Aflin Nesty, heads of the various divisions and departments of the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, the press, and members of the public. Permit me also to say a very special good morning to the staff of the Land Titles Registry Division. Let me place on my record how much we value your diligence and how much we appreciate your contribution to the work that we do at the Land Titles Registry. At the Land Titles Registry Division, we value the service that we extend to the public, and we are always happy to share information with our customers and the members of the public in general. This morning, I will highlight a few areas of service and explain some of what happens behind the scenes during the processing stages. As you may know, at the Land Titles Registry Division, we process a range of transactions, including, but not limited to, noting caveats, mortgages, encumbrances, requests for conversions, caveats of seizures, as well as withdrawals of caveats and caveats of seizures, discharge of mortgages and encumbrances, etc. Further, we also process transfers, applications for first certificates of titles, requests for reconstructions of lost or damaged certificates, requests to state a case, applications to correct a name on a certificate of title, or applications to rectify a survey plan, are just some of the activities undertaken at the Land Titles Registry. Please note that at the Land Titles Registry, the staff is trained solely to process your transfers and your transactions. They are not trained to give you legal advice or to assist you with the drafting of your documents. I say that because sometimes customers get upset when we refer them to counsel or when we inform them that the staff is not supposed to prepare or draft their documents or to give them precedence. It is the practice of the Land Registry to recommend that you consult with an attorney of your choice to assist you with your various transactions. Sometimes also, customers resort to using untrained individuals to conduct their legal matters. We can only caution you against that practice. In some cases, customers are exploited, and in some cases, the documents do not comply with the relevant law, and it has to be placed out of order. When a matter or a transaction is placed out of order for correction or for amendment, it means that your transaction time or your processing time is extended. And the customer may become frustrated, wondering why the transaction is taking such a long time. We therefore encourage you to retain professional professionals who are trained to conduct your transactions. Earlier, I mentioned transfers. Therefore, at this point, allow me to distinguish between direct transfers and PAT transfers, which may help you understand why a particular transaction will take a longer period of time to process. A direct transfer refers to, for example, if I am the owner of a portion of land containing 1 acre and I decide to sell you that entire portion, that is referred to as a direct transfer. A PAT transfer is where, for example, I own 2 acres of land and I decide to sell you 1 acre. That is a PAT transfer. So in addition to your survey plans and valuation report, your surveyor must attend at the land registry to conduct what we refer to as hatching off. Some of you may know that we issue certificates of titles in duplicates. It means that whenever we issue a new certificate of title to an owner, we retain a copy for ourselves. So we give you one and we keep one in our vault. Therefore, whenever landowners sell parts of their lands, the surveyor must come to the registry to mark off on both titles the part or portion that was sold. In some cases, that aspect of the process can take some time, as it is dependent on when the surveyor comes to the land registry to conduct the hatch-off. Please bear in mind that the land registry do not have any control per se with the hatch-off process. We can only impress upon the surveyors to conduct the hatch-off. By way of information, in Dominica, we have registered lands as well as unregistered lands. And I will make the distinction so that we all understand. So where a landowner holds a portion of land and he has in his hand a certificate of title for that portion, we refer to that portion of land as being registered. It means that there is a record for that portion of land in the land registry. All certificates of titles have a number, it has a date when it was entered in the register, and it has a description of the land, and the signature and seal of the registrar affixed to that document. We also have unregistered lands, as I mentioned earlier. Unregistered lands refers to lands which has never been registered. The owners use and they live on the land, but it is not registered, which means that it is not recorded in the land register. And the owners do not have a certificate of title for that portion of land. Sometimes people make the mistake of thinking that an old survey plan, which would have been given to them by their predecessors, is a certificate of title. It is not. I have already highlighted the distinguishing features of a certificate of title. It has a number, it has a date, it has the signature of the registrar, and it has the seal of the registrar. Therefore, an old survey plan is not a certificate of title. Unregistered lands, however, may become registered if the landowner takes steps to register the said portion. We refer to these applications as applications for first certificates of titles. Applications for first certificates of titles by nature always take a longer processing time than transfers, and you will understand why. For these applications, a number of requirements have to be met and a number of documents have to be presented at the land registry. Just to mention a few requirements, notice must be served to all the adjacent owners. Notice must also be published in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, and the application must remain at the Land Titles Registry for a period of 6 weeks before it is reviewed. After it is reviewed and it meets all the necessary legal and procedural requirements, it is sent to the judge of the High Court for his or her approval. During that time, the application may be caveated or it may be delayed where corrections and amendments are required. Most counsel will intimate to their customers the various stages and requirements when presenting a request for first certificate of title, and generally speaking, this is the transaction with the longest processing time because of all the legal and other requirements. I wish to share one last thing with us. Most of you may be familiar with taking loans with a bank or with a credit union and using your certificate of title to secure that loan. The bank or the credit union, through their lawyer, would present your certificate of title to the registry, and we would note a caveat thereon in favor of the financial institution. Sometimes, upon completion of payment of your loan, the bank or the credit union will return your certificate of title with a letter stating that they no longer hold an interest in the subject certificate of title. Some customers come to the land registry with that letter and their certificates of titles, and they ask us to withdraw the caveat. Please bear in mind that in those circumstances, the land registry cannot withdraw the caveat on the basis of this letter. The procedures and processes of the land registry is stipulated in law. Excuse me. And there is a particular form and format for the various transactions, including withdrawals of caveats. Withdrawals may be one of the simplest transactions at the land registry, and it has the shortest processing time. However, customers must avail themselves of the appropriate.
Thank you, Ms. Auguste Francois, for such an informative outline of the processes at your land registry. I'm sure the listening and viewing public indeed has had a better outlook on the way in which titles are attained when deposited at the registry. And also, Minister of National Security and Legal Affairs, Mr. Raymond Blackmore, to offer a few remarks. Thank you.
Secretary, that Megan recognize you for our presence here this morning, and you're very active for that. And I want to also recognize the Deputy Fire Chief and the Acting Superintendent of Prisons, and also the Registrar of Land and Titles. And I want to our intervention there this morning, or presentation there this morning, was very instructive. So I'm hoping to hear a repeat on the various radio stations, so thereby our people can be thoroughly and properly informed as to some of the elements involved in processing and making application for titles. Permit me also to recognize the presence of some of the heads who are here. I want to recognize the head of the Financial Intelligence Unit, Mr. Farrell, and also the head of the Met Office, the head of the ODM, and also the Assistant Superintendent of Prisons. And I just saw the most distinguished Director of Public Prosecution just walked in. And members of the media fraternity, and those of you viewing and listening within Dominica and outside Dominica. Firstly, I want to again say how privileged I am to be part of that experience, for now being the minister responsible for national security and legal affairs. And we believe those frequent press conferences with the various heads of department will better enable us to strengthen our systems and to make it more facilitating in terms of ensuring that the services that the various departments provide to you, the public, can be properly refined, and we can thereby be more efficient in so doing. I want to make just some general comments, and as we conclude that segment of the presentation, and you may want to ask questions after. And you may recall recently our Prime Minister had a press conference and made reference to the steps that were being taken to deal with the whole issue of issuance of passports or e-passport. That we are taking a decision which is a much more secured travel document, especially in these current times that we are living, and where there's a need for stop the usage of the motion readable passport for travel outside of Dominica or to any other destination of Dominica as of the 31st of January 2023. That decision still remains. Let me repeat for emphasis, that decision still remains. I want to also take this opportunity to highly commend the head of immigration and the staff members of the immigration department. You may recall that as to the earlier stage of the migration from the motion readable passport to the e-passport, there was a rush. And as a consequence, you had the process time being more prolonged than what previously obtained. As a responsible government, we ensured that we put systems in place to address that situation. Namely, we hired or employed additional staff. We procured an additional printer, and we had a free SIF system. We had moved from, during the early stage of that migration process, that an application process time taking a couple months. And then we had gotten to a point, because of the system that we had put in place, where applicants were getting their passports after 1 week of application. That happens nowhere in the Caribbean. For a matter of fact, a couple months ago, I went to a ministerial meeting in a neighboring country. And while I was being driven by the driver who was assigned to me, heading to a meeting, I saw a huge crowd hanging out, well, in a line outside a building. So I asked what was happening. He said to me, Mr. Minister, you people have to come early to get a chance to deposit the application for a passport. And he said to me further, they may leave and not having the opportunity to deposit that passport because the doors might be shut in their faces. We did not do that. We ensured that we put systems in place to address such a situation. In the contractual arrangement, there was a set number of books. As you may have heard before, that number of books were fully utilized. As a responsible government, we approved for 50,000 additional books. I'm happy to report here this morning that we have no backlog at the Immigration Department. For a matter of fact, I call on you who have been called by the Immigration Department to pick up your passport to do so. As I speak, there are 214 passports awaiting pickup, and the staff of the Immigration Department have been calling the people to actually pick up their passport. The process time is now 2 weeks. And what we do as a responsible government is not simply to catalog problems and to catalog issues. Running a government is about managing issues when they emerge and finding solutions. But it's a democracy. Some people have not run anything. The only thing they have run and they will continue to run are the mouths. And in a democracy, you have to understand that and appreciate that sometimes. But the government is there to govern and to seek solution by way of proper management. So we will continue as a responsible government to ensure that we put more systems in place within the Immigration Department to ensure that the service delivery at the Immigration Department is even more efficient going forward. You heard from the three distinguished heads of department this morning. And I want to start firstly with the fire and ambulances as we wrap up. And let me commend Mr. Leiter, who in my view is an inspiring leader. As a matter of fact, I can recall once going to a graduation ceremony. And he was a training officer, is that so, sir? And when he presented, I said to him, "You're going to be very high within the management structure of the fire department." And he always reminds me of that pronouncement I made. My mother always said to me, I had good tongue, lanka, but you know what it means. Like when I say something, it always comes to pass. Well, that's what she said, may her soul rest in peace. But the fire department and the officers within the fire department are a very professional set of men and women. I said men and women because we continue to train. I've insisted and I've said that women must be trained as fire officers. And I'm happy that we have been able to ensure that the outstanding acting appointment in vacant positions have been filled. I can recall that was an issue for the union, and I met with the union and the heads within the fire department. And when I got to understand the nature of the problem, we ensured that the officers were appointed. And one of the things that we did as a responsible government, and we have to commend the government for that, and I want to commend the Prime Minister when I went to him. One of the things that were happening within the fire department that has not been given currency and prominence, that you had a number of officers who were not appointed because they had not met the prerequisite, did not have enough subjects then to enter the public service. And they were there for a long period of time. Can you recall that, Mr. Leiter? I'm not hearing you. Okay, thank you very much, yeah. And then when I learned about it, I made a case and I went to the Prime Minister. Because the officers had worked for about 6-7 years. Mr. Leiter was then the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Justice, National Security and Immigration at the time. And we made a case for them. And they were all appointed. And they got retroactive payment of 1 year, isn't that so? So when I went back to the fire department, I was hoping to say, "Thank you, Mr. Minister, hooray." I don't drink, and at least some water could have sufficed. When I came back there to meet the guy, I said, "Yes, thank you very much, but we only got 1 year retroactive pay, but that is consistent with the rules within the public service." So this is a government that has been always looking out for the welfare of all. And we have given a commitment to construct a new fire station in Granby. Last week we did a site visit, a walkthrough. That is under construction. And because the government has a holistic view of the development of the country, As we speak, over 100 houses have been built. So you're going to have emerging challenges insofar as emergency response is concerned, et cetera, et cetera. And that building upon completion, you're going to have 20 officers, including 6 to 8 ladies, will be created opportunities for employment also. And then we're going in the way that we ought to go from an operational standpoint. So instead of officers coming from the respective room to pass through steps, they shall be able, based on the design that we have done, consistent with contemporary times, to just slide. It's not so, Mr. Later. To just slide from the rooms straight into the truck and to move out and to respond to whatever emergency. So, I not hear the fire deputy chief said that, but I wanted to say that it's very important. That is thinking of that administration. Now there was an issue some months ago talking about fire hoses. That happens everywhere in the world, where sometimes you go with a new hose, and then because of the pressure, issues may emerge. What I did not hear Mr. Little say is that we have a lot of new hoses in stock. Isn't that so, Mr. Little? I'm not hearing you. We have procured a number of new hoses that we currently have in stock. We have also procured search and rescue equipments, because you need the proper ropes, it's not so, Mr. Little, the proper boots, etc. We have done that as a responsible government. And because there was a time when I used to hear that, now and again, because I'm not all that backward, you know. All of us know traversing through social media now and again. So sometimes we hear the BF and hear the BF. And sometimes the information comes from internal. But when the corrections are made, there's a loud silence. That is why those press conferences are important. We are given the undertaking also to procure new fire trucks and new ambulances, and to ensure that the ambulances have everything that it needs to have to respond to an emergency situation. I heard the deputy fire chief quite eloquently made reference to you're waiting for the government to pay for the fire trucks that have been promised. Let me, as is, should be aware of, and by the way, one fire truck is $1.4 million. Let's get it straight. It's not a Suzuki you're buying by Auto Trade. And the truck has to be built, manufactured from scratch. So it is 400 and something pounds, according to my maths. And a pound is $3.33 EC. Well, a former sergeant of mine, when I would send you as a recruit, whenever he wrote a complaint, he was very precise. When he put 20 to 200 EC, he used to ask me, Sakisa, Patra, he says, ECC, Eastern Caribbean currency, right? This thing. So 3.33 ECC, Mr. Later, okay? Now 3.3 ECC. So that gives you an aggregate of $1.4 million. That's why it's important for us to ensure we take care of the trucks, etc. As we speak, the wire transfer has been processed for the first half of the payment for that truck, so that the manufacturing process will begin very soon. And also the same can be said for the ambulance, which of course half of the payment, the wire transfer, has already been processed for that payment. So we are keeping that promise as a responsible government as we speak. As we speak, we have 2 fire trucks in Roseau. I've been hearing about the no fire truck in Roseau, only one. We have 2 in Roseau. We have one in Portsmouth, one in Kinfield. Where else again? We have in St. Joseph, we have in Granby. And where? Marigot. And in the next financial year, we'll be making provision again for an additional fire truck and an additional ambulance. So the goal is to ensure that we have 2 ambulances in Roseau two in Marigot and two in Portsmouth, and we are striving towards achieving that as a responsible government. I want to just also reference the prisons. And I want to commend Mr. Edmond for having a very serious view as to how our prison should be managed. And we have begun the process and continuing the process of reform at the prison. I'm of the view as a minister, as I've said before, that some people ought to be kept in jail for a long time because of the magnitude and gravity of the crime that they have committed. But some people ought to be given a second chance. That is to say, when they leave the prison setting, they should be so equipped to contribute towards mainstream society. That's why you're placing emphasis on reform. We just ended a module in painting with Harris Paint, is not so, Mr.? We have started the process with the youth division, in construction, in counseling, all the things that we're doing. Working in concert with the youth division, we are now building, retrofitting a building for a sewing program for the inmates. We are pursuing a program that we had begun in leathercraft and woodcraft. We had allowed inmates with the ability to rewrite the CXA exams, and we shall continue that. We have finalized the design for a rehabilitation center to standardize the manner in which various vocational skills can be taught at the prisons. All these things that we're doing. As we speak, by this month, we shall see the completion of a remand section where we are building individual cells to house inmates who are on remand. So there shall be 33 individual cells with toilets. Those are the things that we're doing as a responsible government. You may recall, Mr. Edmond, there was one time at this maximum security, there was no washroom facility at that section. Isn't that so? We ensured as a minister that that was done. When it was being done, I was criticized because I was told because there were police officers at the prison at the time, I was doing that. But we have a holistic view. Now, we are also embarking on a very ambitious program, a farm program. And the expectation that young men can be taught animal husbandry and the various forms of agriculture. We are working in concert with the Ministry of Agriculture, and also, which is fundamental, that the prison must be self-sufficient in provision. I mean, when I see the bill something, I ask for sometimes about $8,000 to $10,000 a month for national loan. National loan, you know. I'm not talking about, you know, and then we have that labor force at the prisons. So I want to commend Mr. Edmond for actually intensifying the interest in that, and so we have begun the process of planting dasheen, bananas, planting, Irish potato. We have just begun that Irish potato, and then we're just about to receive greenhouses to ensure that we plant vegetables, not only for the consumption of the prisons, but of course we can help the hospital, Dominican Infirmary. And those are the kind of futuristic approach that we have to have insofar as the prison is concerned. And I'm happy that we have been able to increase the prison establishment. And you heard about the 23 additional staff. But of course, a prison officer is not like you're going to buy a loaf of bread. There has to be background checks done on every candidate. And that's something that takes some time. So we're hoping during the course of this year to have all the officers that we have promised and approved for the prisons. And I'm happy to have been informed that women are doing very well, because we also have to ensure that we allow women the opportunity. I know some people had an issue with me when they said to me, okay, women cannot work nights, etc. But my approach to them, and I said that to the police too, the law permits that the minister, whoever the minister is responsible by law to approve the increase in the establishment or the training of the police force. And I shall not give approval for any list with men alone. This is 2024, and we have to ensure there is a gender balance, and women are equally competent as men to be good prison officers and good police officers. And I'm happy we are moving in that direction, and the government is moving in that direction. This is a government that is concerned about the people of this country. So we are hoping by the end of this financial year to have the secondary phase completed. It's about 80% completed, or more than that completed, and from what I've been advised, that wall will be completed in due time during the end of the financial year, so that there will be no reason to say to me that somebody was on the farm working and he jumped into Fokuli. And so we have a secondary fence, what that means. So if you pass the first fence, there'll be a second fence that is even taller. It's not some said one. Taller and more robust than the first one. So I'm waiting to hear. So we are continuing those processes to ensure that the various departments we heard from them. On our coat of arms has we born GST latte. That is very important. Some of us just say that because it was small, we heard that, but we have not actually fully conceptualized and internalized the importance of that. After God is the soil, is not so the land, which means that you need the land to do everything. Land is one of the most important factors of production. One of the most important factors of production. To build, you need land, is not so. To have a business, you need land. And to be able to use the land as collateral, you need a title. You need ownership of that land. And that is how the Labour Party under the administration, the leadership of Rosemary Skerrit, have been having a holistic view of the development of this country. One of the first challenges we had a number of people in Ben Avenue, in Point Michel, in Fokuli, and other parts of the country, reduced to squatters. Can't we recall that? Squatters. Your government gave them stolen land for $1 a square foot. People having challenges to have the land registered. So we separated the functions of the Registrar General and created a separate and independent department and a separate Registrar of Lands and Titles to ensure that that could be done more efficiently. In keeping with the whole concept that après body c'est la terre. So people now were able to buy the lands for $1 a square foot. And we went further to providing resilient homes for all and sundry throughout this country. So people who were once survivors and squatters are now owners of land, owners of homes. And that is how I understand the whole situation. So I want to commend the Registrar of Titles. I believe the presentation this morning was very instructive, so people can know the processes. We have a program on the radio. We shall bring her back with a longer time, so she can take questions, etc., and interface with the public. So I will rest there for now, except to say that we're moving closer and closer to the hurricane season. And we have already begun, because what we're trying to do within the ministry is to make disaster preparedness a staple item on the people's agenda, an everyday thing, not a seasonal thing. And we have been having ongoing training throughout the country, and to ensure that people are ready and not only waiting for for the hurricane season, but disaster strikes at any time. So in due time, we'll be hearing more from Mr. Pascal and Mr. Itoma. You heard him spoke about the dust and other issues there. And thank you very much. And may God continue to bless this beautiful country. If you have any questions, we'll take one or two questions if you have. I also want to recognize Mr. Peter Allen, the Director of Legal Aid, who's also in the audience here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. And as invited, we open the floor now for any questions or comments from the media.
Kari FM. I have two questions. My first question is, what is being done by the Ministry of National Security to quell the situation in Haiti? And also, how are they preparing for the hurricane season that's coming up next?
I think the first one is addressed to the Minister. And after, how is the Ministry addressing the issues in Haiti?
Oh, I think we have heard from our Prime Minister who have spoke eloquently about the situation in Haiti. For a matter of fact, a couple months ago, I had the privilege to have been in a meeting at the council level, ministers of national security and law enforcement within CARICOM, and the Minister for National Security of Haiti was also present. And as you know, we are hoping that the situation in Haiti can be stabilized, and we have given the commitment to assist once the situation has gotten to a point where the place is stable from a security standpoint, and to assist in whatever way we can assist to bring a sense of law and order in Haiti. And we are hoping that, of course, the world, the global community can assist in providing the aid that Haiti would need. But it's a situation that has to be brought under control, and from a security standpoint, and before we can even respond from an RSS standpoint, et cetera, et cetera. So we are actually hurting, and of course, as you witness what is happening in Haiti, we are in actually total solidarity with the people of Haiti. In terms of the hurricane season, Mr. Pascal is there.
Okay, good afternoon. I could answer in one line, but I will probably just give some background. We operate in a multi-hazard environment where we look at all hazards that may affect the island, and it's a year-round activity. Like the fire chief says, or the deputy, sometimes people think that we're only active during the hurricane season, but our work plan goes year-round. Nonetheless, annually we pay attention to the Atlantic hurricane season, which runs from June to November. The National Disaster Management System continues to put measures in place to mitigate against any impact or act swiftly in response to any events. We have heard of the predictions for this year, but meanwhile we continue to ask that residents, the onus is not only on the national system but also on residents. We continue to ask residents to advance their preparedness activities regardless of the seasonal outlook. What we do from a national system, we do public education, where we go out in the various communities and inform people as to what the season entails and what preparedness activities one can take. We do training in communities, and we also resource communities where we provide little shovels, wheelbarrows, and things of that nature to residents so that they can prepare for the season. But public education is key, and we continue to do our public education. It only takes one system. I know the season, everybody's on hype with regards to the season, but it only takes one system to cause adverse effects to your life or your livelihoods. So we're asking persons to be prepared.
I just wanted to say there's so much that the state can do, but the onus is also on us to prepare from an individual standpoint and to ensure that we have our own plans at our homes, to ensure that our homes are structurally sound, that there's no defect in our windows or doors, etc., that we clean our environment, and overhanging trees or drains, etc. Because we have been able to work on our emergency response infrastructure over the years, consistent with what have been articulated by the Prime Minister and his government on the whole issue of resilience. We have constructed purposefully 3 regional hurricane shelters / resource centers. We have also, working in concert with our benefactors, constructed 2 emergency operational centers / storerooms in Castlebrooks on Cotton Hill. In the month of March, we'll be getting the computers and other things that we need to ensure that the one in Castlebrooks is fully functional. We have provided training from a community basis throughout this country in radio telecommunication. We have, in the event that our conventional type communication system is undermined, that we have the kind of redundancy that we need to have, because that's why it is important with the radio sets, we have a greater degree of redundancy. And not only that, our first responders are always the people from the various communities and people working from the community level, or community nurses, or district development officers, people in the village councils, etc. We have, as we speak, 66 satellite phones installed, so that can be distributed to the various people who need to have those phones. So in the event something happens and our communication system is knocked off, we can actually establish contact. And those are the things that we're doing throughout the country. We have trained people on the fundamentals of managing shelters. As we speak, we're installing repeaters throughout the country to ensure that our telecommunication or radio sets can be effective and can be used. We're about to have a tabletop exercise, so that subsequent to that, to have simulation exercises as to how to respond in the event we may have an earthquake, etc. Because disasters are not only limited to hurricanes. All these things that we're doing as a responsible government. We have installed scores of automatic water gauges, so we can stay in our respective offices. Mr. Pascal and Itoma can sit in his office and monitor the water elevations or rivers, etc. And that can be used to informing, to advise the policymakers as to what decision we should make. Even within ODM, we have people that can who can collect data, also to work in concert with ODM. We're looking at restructuring by way of human resource, ODM and the Met Office. This is the first time in the history of this country we can issue our own advisory, our own warning, our own watches, because we have the infrastructure for doing that. And we have trained forecasters also. All these things this government has been doing, not only talking, the government has been doing. So these are things we can do as a responsible government, but the onus is also on us, that when we come out there, the expert, and say to you, you have to move to a shelter, or you have to move to a safer zone, or you must ensure you have enough water. You must ensure that you clean your drains, that you deal with potential public hazard. Those are things that you ought to do for yourselves. Okay, so I know everybody tends to blame the Prime Minister when those things happen, but from a policy standpoint, we have been doing what we were supposed to do as a government. As I close it, and the whole issue is resilience, the kind of roads that we're building. So as we speak, we're doing Castle Bluffs, the East Coast Road. You heard from the Prime Minister on the trip from China, going to build new roads with proper drains and proper culverts to deal with the hydraulics issues that we have in the country, proper culverts, etc. From Portsmouth going back to the airport. Those are all the things that we're doing as a responsible government. So this hurricane season question that you ask is a very comprehensive and broad question which requires the cooperation and participation of all. Yeah.
Well said, Mr. Minister. Are there any further questions? Oh. No? Okay, great. I take it that we're well informed and we could go out and inform the public who was not able to listen to us today or see us of these great initiatives and measures undertaken by the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. That being said, I wish to place my thanks on record to the Honorable Minister of National Security for his unrelenting hard work and support. And as you can see, he's very much in tune with the various ministries, their needs, our development. So we thank you, Mr. Honorable Minister. Thank you to all the heads, specifically the heads who presented here today. To the staff of the ministry in all divisions, I want to thank you for your hard work. The SAO, Ms. Lloyd, and the administrative staff of the ministry, thank you. To the public listening and viewing here today and the public overall, and to the media for always bringing the news to us and keeping us informed. And by no means last, I'd like to thank the government of Dominica for the unwavering support to the Ministry of National Security, for the implementations of our policies, procedures, our staff increase, and our needs. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day. And it was indeed a pleasure having you here with us today. Thank you.
And that concludes our press conference here called by the Ministry of National Security. We heard from the Fire Chief, Mr. Later, who gave a report on the fire service and, of course, the improvements that have been made to enhance the service provided by the fire and ambulance services to the people of Dominica. That, of course, is very critical, responding to fires now that we're experiencing dry season. And also, we have the ambulance. We're hearing, the more people, the more vehicles we have, the more calls there will be to attend to emergency situations here in Dominica. Good news for the people of Grand Bay in the south, and of course, that will alleviate a number of stresses, and help enhance safety in the Grand Bay community. We also heard from the man at the helm at the prisons, Mr. Jeffrey Edmond, who not only talked about the inmates, but of course the improvements in the area of education, the skills that they are learning to improve themselves and to make them more serious men and women when they leave the prisons and when they get back into society, and of course the amount of security that is being beefed up to ensure that the prisoners don't escape, because if they escape, they puts us all at risk. We also heard from the Honorable Minister himself, who gave a very comprehensive report, Honorable Minister Blackmore, who is very good at what he does, and spoke about the amount of money being pumped into ensuring that Dominica has a good ambulance, fire truck, costing over $1 million for a truck to be built, of course, to be constructed. And so it's not just been sent, but of course it will be built in accordance with what is required or what is asked by the government or the Ministry of National Security. He touched on the hurricane season and Dominica's preparedness, his ministry's preparedness for the hurricane season, and also the immigration department and the processing of the passports. We no longer have to wait for 3 months or 2 months to receive our passports, but of course receive our passports within very quick time. We're talking about 2 weeks, and in some cases even 1 week. And moving ahead, using technology, continuing to make those passports readily available not only to Dominicans here, but Dominicans out of who live overseas. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for watching. Those of you who were able to listen on our FM frequencies, and those of you who were able to watch on our Facebook page. Hopefully we will be repeating this press conference. We will be playing it sometime this evening. If we have to, it will have to be at 7 o'clock tonight. Don't forget, at 6 o'clock we bring you a special feature. About 46 years ago, thereabouts, on the 22nd of April, 1978, some school students of the Campbell Primary School lost their lives. They were covered by a mudslide, and also some employees of the self-help department perished under that slide. We will bring you that special feature this evening at 6 o'clock on Kyrie FM, and hopefully we'll bring you a replay of the press conference tonight at 7 o'clock on Kyrie FM. Don't forget, at 9 o'clock, it's all about constructive talk. Thanks again to Dominic for allowing the press conference here at ODM to go through. We will bring you Dominic's Power Talk tomorrow afternoon at 12 o'clock. Thanks, Tamara, and the rest of your team. I am Steve Vidal on behalf of my technician, Mosiah Olive. When short, we got good quality broadcast visually and via our FM frequencies, taking it back to Selector Urban and Master Control. Good afternoon.